Hello, everybody. This is April Novoa with the Everything Considered podcast, and I'm very excited today. I have Rachael Weaver with us today, and she is your messaging bestie.
I
So
know.
she helps a lot of spiritual leaders, and I know as a person who has worked in this field for a while, that oftentimes business doesn't really, at least the business programs that are out there and the books that I've read, don't always really align very well with individuals that work in spirituality.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So Rachel's going to talk. She's got a different take on this, and I'm going to kind of let her explain to you what it is she does in her work with spiritual leaders in the spiritual community.
Thank you, April, so much. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you. So basically I blend human design and copywriting so that spiritual leaders, healers, coaches, that kind of those, that niche really create a message that is clear, but also really truly unique to them. And feels really good, right? When we're able to clearly communicate what we do in a way that is purposeful and meaningful, then content, writing sales pages and emails, all of it just feels so much easier. And we're able to attract the people that are meant to work with us.
Right. And sometimes I know as I've tried to work with different things, and it just doesn't feel right to me. It just
Yeah.
doesn't fit. And I end up just kind of doing it my way anyway. But that's kind of what you're teaching really, or you're trying
Yeah.
to lead people back to
Yeah.
their original self, their original way of expressing themselves, as opposed to try to
Yeah.
fit into all these kind of cookie cutter
Exactly.
versions, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so much of copy is cookie cutter. When I really dove in and started learning about buyer psychology and how to write copy that sells, it is very cookie cutter and check these boxes. This is what you need to do. And then your thing sells. But I do truly believe that we're moving into a time where that kind of selling isn't working anymore, and it's more about being yourself,
Mhm.
being and clearly just communicating what you do. And that's why people want your help, right? They don't want to be sold, they don't want to be
Mhm.
another just sale for you.
Right.
They want to actually have a connection with people that they're
Mhm.
buying from, especially in the healing and coaching communities.
Most definitely. I mean, that feeling doesn't feel good to the deliverer or the receiver when there's an
Yeah,
authenticity. It is
absolutely.
just something that it just doesn't jive, and it's about finding meaning in what you're doing, because that's really important.
Yeah, yeah, and really sharing your gifts with the
Mhm.
world in a way that helps other people. And yeah, that just makes work so much less not work, or it makes it
Yeah,
more fun.
it should flow, shouldn't it? Um,
Yeah.
now,
Yeah.
what with a typical client, say I was to come to you and
Mhm.
ask you, how I don't know how to do this. Can you use
Yeah.
human design and your skills to help me?
Yeah.
What would you offer, and where would we start?
Well, first I'd want to see kind of where you're at and what isn't working, right? In your messaging, in your content, things like that. And you as a manifester, asking you like, are you putting yourself into a box? Are you saying
Right.
the things that you want to be saying? And we can find a lot of that energy in your chart. It's like the channels that you have connected to your throat, really, really important. What your
Okay.
sun gate is, what your Mercury gate is. And I can look at those and be like, well, are you, so just sitting, haven't seen your chart, but if you have will center to the throat, I'd be like, well, are you talking about what you want? Are you talking about the
Mm,
desires that you see for other
mhm.
people? And if you're not, then you're like, and I'm like, that's where we need to go.
Yes.
That's what we need to start infusing into your copy and your messaging.
Okay.
And guarantee like you're going to feel so much more, I guess, like unleashed. You're
Right.
like,
Free.
this is what I want to talk about. Right.
Yeah.
So yeah. And
I
sometimes with that, I've found that um, clients want to talk about certain things like that are in their chart, the energies of their chart,
Right.
but they're scared to, they're worried about doing it. Like So there's some deconditioning there that we do,
Okay.
just to get those channels clear again and feel like, yes, this is me and I'm ready to step out as me. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
I have the 1/8, which is the, channel of inspiration. So if I don't feel
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
something's really inspiring me, I don't,
Yeah.
I'm just, and
Nope.
then I have the 2551, and that's how my will center gets to my throat, which is a little bit of a different, trip.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
so yeah, I mean, if something doesn't feel inspiring to me, I just don't have the gas for it. I just can't.
Hmm.
It
Yeah.
doesn't work.
It's like, it's not there. Yeah.
It's not there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. That makes
Yeah.
sense.
So you have this ability to just kind of really hear the design, really hear what they're saying and how can
Yeah.
they apply it in
Yep.
business. Okay.
Yep. And then taking into account your experiences too, and the things that you are passionate about, right?
Mm-hmm.
And where your life has taken you, and blending that with how you're authentically and designed to communicate.
Right. We really are
Yeah,
moving into a different paradigm
we are
where
100%.
a lot of things that we've done in the past in terms of business and
Hmm.
our economy are just rapidly shifting. And I think
Hmm.
it's a very good thing. But it's beautiful that we have individuals like you that can recognize that and can help guide people in a direction that's
Yeah.
most impactful for them. Talk to
Yeah.
me a little bit about deconditioning.
Mm. I feel like, I mean, you can take deconditioning in a lot of different ways, but in the human design world, it just means that you're looking at the beliefs that you've taken on as a child, right? We all know that through the age of 7, you're just a sponge, right? You just take on everything that's around you, whether it's yours or not. And so conditioning shows up primarily in openness in your
Right.
white centers, but it can also be conditioned from your definition as well. So if you have strong channels like the will center to the throat where you're saying what you want, you
Right.
can be told as a kid, like, what you want doesn't matter.
Yes.
And
Hmm.
stop talking, like, no, you can't. And it shuts that channel down where you don't want to talk about that anymore. You're afraid to talk about it. No one cared, right?
Hmm.
So there's conditioning in that way as well. So it's looking at what you have for definition and how that energy works, within your chart, and
Hmm.
then going, how do you feel about that?
Hmm.
Where is the where is it or how is it showing up in your life? And
Hmm.
are you putting yourself into a box or limiting that energy because
Hmm.
you're afraid of something, or
Mm.
um, that kind of thing? So that's when I say deconditioning, that's what I'm talking about. It's clearing your defined channels so that you can speak clearly and
Mhm.
not hold back because of being worried about something.
Right. And so, if somebody has, like, for example, an open throat center,
Yeah.
how would you help them to
Yeah.
overcome feeling? Because I've got friends that have an open throat center, and they often don't feel like they are heard or
Yeah.
that they're talked
Yep.
over.
Yep.
How would you approach that with them?
Yeah. So open throats, I always ask, like, do you feel like a pressure to talk all the time? Like, do you feel like you just have to get your word in and like the last word, or just
Mhm.
blurting things out? If they do, then we work through that of why they feel like they're not heard first.
Okay.
Because the magnetism happens with an open throat is when you are quiet and observant and listen, really truly listen to what the other person's saying,
Right.
and then mirror back what they say. So when in copy, in copywriting, they talk a lot about using your ideal client's words, right? Like getting into their heads, using their words. That is actually really, really important for somebody with an open throat.
Mm.
Some less important for people with definition in their throat. Still kind of there, but not as important. But someone with an open throat is, yeah, what are your ideal client people saying? And
Mhm.
how can you reflect back, mirror back what they're saying so that they feel heard, and then they will come to you wanting your advice and solution. So it's
Mhm.
really, it's understanding the pressure to speak And then allowing going, okay, I know that when I'm observant and I really, really listen, that people will come to me, and I trust that people will come to me.
Right.
Mhm.
Right. Yeah, that can be a very difficult thing to work through. I think
Yeah.
too, also an undefined will can be a very difficult thing too. You want to talk about
I
that a
have
little
that.
bit? Do you? So so this is from firsthand experience. You are a 4/6, you're a manifesting generator?
Yep, a 4/6 sacral manifesting generator.
Okay,
Yep.
all right. So
Yep.
yeah, talk to us about this will thing because that's a
Oh
pretty.
gosh. I feel like that's been my like life's theme, is
Mhm.
dealing with worthiness and
Right.
understanding worthiness. And I also have an open, obviously open solar plex and open head, open ajna. So
Wow.
I take in other people's emotions,
Hmm.
100% attach ideas to them and why I feel that way and whatnot. But then
Right.
also seeking validation in in just what I do, in what I, everything. I'm always
Right.
wanting that validation.
Hmm.
Um, so it's been a lot of unpacking and
Hmm.
getting back to know worthiness. I mean, you're worthy just for being born. It
Right.
doesn't matter. But it's an unraveling, right? It's a layers of understanding when I'm attaching to outcomes too,
Yes.
um, and letting it go as I become aware of it.
Do you find in that awareness that things just kind of naturally come to you and flow as opposed
Mm,
to when you're trying to like make it happen?
I can't make anything happen, even though
Right.
I try so
Yeah. It's just not the way it
I
works.
it's not. Oh my God. And I swear,
Yeah.
like every time I do it in a big way or whatever, I'm like, why? Oh, I know this now. I know this now. But
Right.
again, it still falls into the trap of, especially when it's something that I'm like, "Oh, I really want this. I
Yeah.
really have a deep desire for this."
Mhm.
It, yeah, it's hard. Like you want to go out and make it happen. But every time I'm like, it's more about just setting the intention now of,
Mhm.
and stepping into like, no, I am that already. I don't need to chase it and go after it. When
Right.
I am it, it will find me.
That's right. That's right. I
Yeah.
think that's, it's so interesting to me. And again, for those that are not real, don't understand what we're talking about as far as open centers, those are places where you take in energy that is not yours. And there are
Yep.
also areas where we become conditioned or we start to try to be who we're not. And
Yeah.
the thing that I always say to my clients that have a defined sacral is you're magnetic. Like
Hmm.
you're drawing things to you, whereas myself as a manifestor I actually have to like go out and make it happen. And so I kind of actually really envy the defined sacral because it really does draw things to it, but it's that trust,
Mhm.
isn't it?
Yeah,
It's like
it's trust.
yeah,
Mhm. You can fudge it up real good.
yeah,
And I have of
yeah,
trying. That's that the manifesting generator part, right? Like
right,
I want to initiate. I want to go out and make that. I'm like, I'm very ambitious and very driven.
yes,
But it almost to a fault. Like, no, it will find me, but I have to trust and believe and be
yes.
before it does. Yeah.
That's a big part of the generator and manifesting generator
Yeah, it is.
walk is developing that trust that everything is
Mhm.
going to come to them in due time at the right
Yep.
time.
Yep.
And your authority is, oh, you said
Sacral. Sacral.
sacral. Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, there is truth in the moment for you, but
Mhm.
you do have to wait to respond for things to come to you. And yeah, that can be really challenging. The non-sacral folks, we have a whole different world that we live in. And, if it's right, we have the energy to do it.
Yep.
If it's not right, we just don't.
Yep.
And that can be hard to kind of flesh out too. Projectors. What would you
Mhm.
tell me about projectors?
Oh, projectors. Um, Definitely have to work on their worthiness first and seeing
Hmm.
themselves and validating themselves before they seek it in others. So a lot of projectors that I work with, it's making sure that they believe in what they do and that they have a
Hmm.
solution and that they are very, very talented.
Right.
and getting them solid with that before we go out and create visibility and market the business. Because
Mhm.
if you're trying to do it before you have that feeling, at least even a little bit in, it doesn't
Right.
have to be obviously fully embodied, but like even just a little bit, making sure that they're writing content from that confident space,
Yeah.
then it's going to be like talking to a brick wall. Like
Right.
it's no one's going to hear you. I think projectors are incredible. I mean, their whole signature theme is success. So
Yes.
once they're in their energy and they get how it works, holy moly, this like on fire. All
Yes.
types, I think, do. Once you're in your energy, you are on fire, right?
Right. Right.
Um, it's just getting to that point and working through and understanding how your energy works. Yeah.
Yeah, it's patience. And again, same
Yeah.
thing with like with
Yeah.
the sacral. It's
Mm-hmm.
trusting that the
Mm-hmm.
right invitations will come to you.
Yeah.
As opposed to trying to like go out and like force it. And I find as a manifester, my channels are all projected. So I
Yeah.
even have a waiting component. I can't just
Yeah.
I can't
Yeah.
I have to wait sort of for the invitation to go forward as well. I think
Mm-hmm.
there's not a whole lot of manifesting channels per se. So I think most of us have
That's
a
true.
waiting component.
Yeah.
So
True.
the reflector,
Mm,
have you worked
yeah.
with reflectors, or do you,
I've done
they're
a little
rare?
bit, nothing. I haven't had a deep dive 101 client with a reflector yet.
Mhm.
But I've done smaller things with people, one-on-ones or like a once off session, stuff like that, chart readings. It really is about creating space for them that
Mhm.
is uplifting and allows them to feel good and supported. If the people around them, if the environment that they're living in any way toxic,
Mhm.
it's going to be really hard for them to pull themselves off and like their authentic self, right? Because there's
Yeah.
just too much a negative energy bombarding them, right?
Right.
They
Right.
need that space to decondition, to get rid of all the energy and to come back to themselves, and then allowing whatever the day brings, right? And kind of
Mhm.
in the surprise of like, who do I want to be today? How do I
Yeah.
want to show up today? What energy am I feeling into today?
Right.
And just allowing that flow to take them wherever it wants. And it's going to look all over the place to the outside world, but to them,
Mhm.
it's going to feel like, yeah, I'm just going to go here, I'm going to go here. And it's like
Mhm.
flowy, and just natural to them. But it's not
Yes.
going to look like anything that the world says is successful.
Yes, not with them only comprising 1% of the population.
Yeah.
I imagine, and we're all going to look different, aren't we? I mean, that's the
Yeah,
thing.
for
And
sure.
there's just been, and business has been so structured for so long.
Hmm.
Um, and it just doesn't work for everybody. That's why very
Yeah.
few, you see very few people become extremely successful in business. And then if you add the spiritual component to it, there's a little bit of a discombobulation there, because
Yeah.
so many of us are either empathic or intuitive. And it's, it's hard to, you're taking on so much energy from the outside world. It's really hard
Yeah.
to look out for your own needs and carve out a niche for sure.
Well, I think especially in the spiritual community, when you're really empathic and can
Mhm.
sense all these energies, you know that the old way, the masculine way of doing things isn't going to work. Like you intuitively
Right.
know that.
Right.
And it's just a matter of finding the thing that does work for you and
Mhm.
um, allowing yourself to carve a path that doesn't look like what it used to look like 10 years ago, 20 years
Right.
ago, whatever, right?
Right.
It is a whole new world. We
Mhm.
get to do it the way we want.
Yeah. Yeah. It's rapidly becoming,
Yeah.
it's changing very, very quickly. And that's
Yeah.
very exciting. But yeah, there's a lot of people that are just not really sure how to navigate it.
Hmm.
So it's
Yeah.
really great that you're here. So you're very good with marketing,
Hmm.
and messaging and copy. And I was not real clear with what that meant exactly. Would you explain that to the audience a little bit?
Yeah. Yeah. So copywriting is basically words that sell. So anything that you're writing in your business, your website, sales pages, emails, content is all copy. because it's selling something, right?
Mhm.
Messaging is basically the same thing. It's just and maybe a nicer way to say it.
Yeah,
Copywriting sounds a little bit more mechanical.
it does.
Um,
Yeah.
messaging is like, no, this is my message to the world, and your messaging sells what your offer is, right?
Mhm.
And for me, that's my passion, is really communicating what it is that you do so that people
Mm.
want to buy from you. And that way you can serve the world with your gifts and have a business that lights you up and doesn't feel like work, but is just an extension of you.
It's beautiful. And human
Yeah.
design really, I mean, it makes such a difference because you're seeing it through
Yes.
that lens. So
Yeah.
it's extremely individual. It's tailored to the individual.
Yeah, it was really interesting when I first started writing copy for people, and I would have to rely on them telling me who they were
Mm,
and really what they stood for, things like that. And I knew for myself that it changed all the time. I didn't really know who I was.
right.
And it was the same for them. Like, they oftentimes would base who they were or who they wanted to be online based on what other people were doing, right? Like,
Hmm.
oh, they're selling this, I'm going to sell that, even though it wasn't really something that they wanted to sell or wanted to do. They just thought that's how you make money, right?
Right.
Um, Human design really helped me go, okay, this is how your energy works. And then let's blend that with what you do in your experience.
Hmm.
And that's when light bulbs went off and people were like, oh, you get me, like really, really get me. And I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
So let's put that out in the world.
I love that. And that's where the world goes. This is for real. This is
Yeah.
this real person, speaking. They're coming from their heart. It's
Mhm.
authentic. That's
Mhm.
huge. And I
Yeah.
feel like that, people recognize that. Whereas when you're trying to copy what everybody else is
Right.
doing, it doesn't feel good to you. It doesn't feel, again,
Yeah.
does not feel good to them. And
Yeah.
so I think this is a beautiful way to combine all of it. And human
Mhm.
design in and of itself is just such an amazing, I mean, it's beyond, above and beyond the whole business part of it. It's a way to become your authentic self. It's a way for
Yeah.
you to love who you really are. Because when we're
Yeah.
deeply conditioned, we're just fighting against our own design. Like we're living life in resistance, and that's not
Mhm.
comfortable.
No, and I think our souls are going to keep knocking us over the head until we
Yeah.
get the message that, like, hey,
Yeah.
let's just be yourself.
Yes, with the 2551, I've had plenty of those knocks. So I lots of wake up calls. So
Yep. Yeah.
yeah, and that's a big part of I guess being drawn to this work for me personally is
Mhm.
just
Yeah.
like, who am I really? How does this
Yeah.
how does
Yeah.
this machine, this vehicle work? How does
Yeah.
it drive best? I mean, you
Yeah.
wouldn't buy a car and not take glance at the manual, right? Like, and
Mhm.
but we live our lives trying to do and drive like everybody else, and it
Mhm.
just doesn't flow. It doesn't work, and
Yeah.
it's not a happy place to be. So I love that you're doing this. So it's all about finding purpose and meaning in your work,
Mhm.
using this approach, and I think it's really wonderful. So if people want to find you and find out what you offer,
Mhm.
you have a website. It's
I do.
rachelweaver.com.
Yep.
And you also have a podcast, and I love the
I
title of
do.
it. Is it all right
I
if I
do.
share that?
Yeah, that would be great.
Be you, babe.
Be you, babe.
Be you, babe. I love that. I love that. So that's can be found on Spotify. And then you have an Instagram, I am
Yep.
Rachael Weaver,
Yep.
and a Facebook group that's a members group, correct?
Yeah.
Called uh,
Yep.
Aligned Copy Posse.
Yep. That's it.
I love it. I love it. So I'm going to put all those details below
Awesome.
this video or audio if you're listening to it. And so I always ask somebody, or I always ask my guests one last question. It's
Yeah.
kind of a silly question, and there is no right or wrong answer. And the
Okay.
question is, if you could live at any time in history, when would that be and why?
Oh, anytime in history. Oh gosh. I don't know if I could pick one. I kind of want to sample them all.
Ooh,
I want
I
to
like that. I haven't gotten
go
that answer
back and like
before.
be an Egyptian. And then I kind of want to go, go back in like the Renaissance period and like just get a taste of all of them.
Wow.
Yeah, I think I would, I don't know.
That is answered like a true manifesting generator.
It is, isn't it? Like, I'll take it all.
Do it all. Which dish do you want? All of them.
All of them. A little taste of everything, please.
It's wonderful. I love that answer. I think that's one of my favorite answers I've ever heard. So,
That's awesome.
Rachael, thank you so much for coming on today. And again, find her at rachelweaver.com. And I'll have all the other relevant details underneath this video or audio. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Have a blessed day.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.